All right, hi everybody. This is Baby Dork Gaming. You're hearing Matt speaking. Today, I just kind of wanted to do a quick stream based around a deck that I had built over the weekend through BSS DB, and mostly it was because a friend of mine had wanted to build just a Star Dragons deck. And so I started looking through them because I kind of was like, oh man, I need to learn more about the red and get some ideas for some abilities. Normally I'm playing either white or purple in Battle Spirits Saga, so this was actually a great learning experience. Um, One of the things that I kind of noticed right away is that in the first set, a lot of folks like to build their deck around this Supernova Dragon Sigworm Nova. So the main thing with him is that he has this ascension that allows you to basically pay your soul core and sacrifice a Sigworm on the field to fill your life back up to 5 life. Uh, but the problem that I have with it, so he's got, once you get him up to level 2 or 3, right? So 3 cores or 5 cores. When he attacks, of course, he can select any number of opponent spirits with a combined total of 10,000 or fewer BP and destroy them. That's pretty good. I like that. And honestly, if you'll notice that I have these numbers right here, it's a 50 card deck. But I wouldn't worry too much about these numbers because I haven't play tested it, so I don't know the importance of it. But um, or the importance of how many cards should be in there, like what's popping up too much and how handy is it, I guess. But you'll notice I only had one in here because I honestly considered not even including them in here because I wanted to focus on building around this guy. Tin Sword Saint Starblade Dragon, right? So, of course, he's got Awaken, which is pretty common across the Star Dragons. For those who don't know, basically what Awaken does is it allows during a flash window for this spirit to pull cores off of other spirits. And you may be thinking, oh, that's like, why would I do that if I'm already going to set up my cores on the main step? And part of it's going to be this, right? So, say you got him at level 1, right? He's only got 4,000 BP, and a guy attacks. And you're like, uh-oh, he's attacking with something that I would love to wipe out. Maybe it's like a white mammoth or something like that, right? So you could block with him. Now, he's probably going to lose out, and we'll say he had 8,000 BP, the attacker, right? He's going to lose out to this 4,000. Unless we pull cores, which may even include killing some of the spirits on our side by core removal. But we could get him up to 5, right? And bam, you just block that other monster. He's dead, and he's now off the field, right? Could be good for like a defense against like a Buffalo Bill or really anything that's just kind of terrorizing you that's slightly over your current BP. But we're going to come back to this Awaken because it's good to have in your pocket, but I'm not necessarily advocating for like, yeah, let's all go in all in on Awaken. We're actually going to look at this for something else. So it also allows us during our turn, when you draw a card with one of the effects, with one of your effects, excuse me, select one of your opponent's spirits with 3,000 or fewer BP and destroy it. This is actually kind of what we're building around, and notice that it's a level 2 and a 3. So we definitely want to get it up to level 3, and 3 cores for 7,000 BP is not too bad, especially considering this effect. And then we can kind of hover around if we need cores. We can, of course, use this when you have 3 or fewer life and you reduce your opponent's life, draw 2 cards. So these couldn't work in tandem. But here's the thing: if the other side of the field is not like if you need the extra 2 cores to have something else on your field, you might go ahead and use them, but it's awesome to have this in your pocket. It's never, I think, a bad thing to have too much, to have too much to offer yourself, I guess, to fall back on. Now, so if we're going to be building around this whole, if we're going to be building around this right here, so basically what we want to do is. We want to utilize this early to mid to help keep their side of the field low, and we also want to help keep them paying full cost for their monsters as much as possible, right? So we definitely want to make sure that we're drawing on our turn. Okay, so that's the key here, right? So if we're drawing at any point outside of our turn, we're not getting to destroy things with this. But we can pair this bad boy up, and you'll notice that, like, I've got all these monsters, and we'll talk about the monsters in a second, or the spirits. But I really put a lot of emphasis on drawing in here. So, of course, we've got our absolute eye shields. For those who don't know, it's basically when you lose a life, you get the life back, and then you can pay the cost, which would be 4, because this is a red deck, so we'll never get to use this. But it'd be 4 to basically end the active battle at the end of the attack step. So basically what this does is you're like, uh-oh, I miscalculated. Now they're going to take some damage, and I don't want them to drain me all the way down. So we play this, we pay that cost, and now they're done. They can't continue to attack. Now they might get to activate some effects, such as when battle ends. Maybe they get to refresh their spirits or something like that. But I mean, it's if your option is die in the turn or not. I mean, so. Our Nexus, I'm only running one Nexus in here, and I'm curious if anybody else has got some other ideas for Nexus, but mainly I was like, okay, a 4 cost, 2 possible reduction, right? But here we go. So at level 1, draw 1 additional card. This is during your draw step, so it's during your turn. After your draw, discard a card from your hand, right? So yes, you're going to be discarding a card from your hand, but keep in mind, if we're running 4 of these, this is in our turn, so this right here would allow us to destroy up to 4 creatures, 3,000 or fewer BP. So if you're fighting a yellow deck, which is notoriously low BP, or at least 3,000 or lower, boy, this right here is going to chew them up, right? Utilizing that destruction effect, along with being able to destroy one of your nexuses through Burning Force, is going to be pretty good, right? So you're just trying to keep their side of the field empty. We've got some big bang energies right here, just to be able to help get the star dragons out. During this turn, all star dragon spirit cards in your hand have a cost equal to your life total. So that means even at a 5, right, his cost would be 5. Right, so there's not really a negative to it, especially early on in the game. You could get the Super Dragon Nova out for 5, right? The other thing to notice, I did kind of go into this. I only put 1 in here of this Dragon Seagworm Nova because I only have 1 actual Seagworm Dragon in here. So if you're paying attention, like I mentioned earlier, when you do, to get this 5 life, you have to use Ascend, right? And so up here, Ascend costs 6 or more, right? So this would work because it does have a cost of 6, right? So we could sacrifice that. So down here it says when the spirit performs Ascend, so he has to do this when you're pulling him out on the field. And unless, of course, there's just not a cost 6 or more, but then you don't get this ability. So you have to ascend using a Seagworm. Okay. Now you could ascend, calling him out onto the field with a non-Seagworm, but then you don't get the 5 life. Same thing is if you use the ascend with Seagworm, but you don't place a Soul Core into the void, then you don't get the 5 life. So I did keep that in mind. So you'll notice as we're looking through here, one of the common things you'll see would be a flamefish over here. I didn't want to put anything in here that was going to be reliant on that Soul Core, so that I didn't have anything in the way of me having any kind of internal debate as to whether I would use this for a heal. In this particular deck, I only really included him again just to have that little effect, because I'm not intending on this deck to like hang around for too long. The idea is get in, keep their side of the field empty, and then close them out on their health, right? So Uh, Down here we have our 2 draw options. Again, this is paying 2 in your main step. You can get 2 cards. That's 2 monsters off their side of the field with 3,000 or BP. And then, of course, we have the Star Blessed draw. Now, here's the thing. All right, so this says when opponent resolves a spirit's win summon effect. So this is a burst card. It's needing a win summoned effect from an opponent, which means that this is going to be outside of your turn. Okay, so normally speaking, we would want to play Star Blessed draw as a burst, but in this case, we wouldn't. We want to make sure we're going to use it in the main turn just for the 2 cards. Yes, you're leaving 2 cards on the table, and of course you can totally change this up. But the thing is, if you want 4 cards and you know maybe you're playing against a green deck or something, and maybe a white deck, because they both have some win summon effects, yellow possibly, but if you're just seeing them a lot, then of course you can use this. But I suspect you'll probably want to use that burst slot just to hold your ice shield, and then you can use this for 2 destruction for 3,000 fewer BP, which that's guaranteed. So in your main step, if you're looking across the field and you're like, oh, I've got all of this 2,000 and fewer BP, all right, well, let's knock them down 2. Especially if you've got these, that's 4 creatures right there in your hand, and you could just pay as little as 2, 4 for both of these, destroy 4 monsters, and then go into your attack step, right? So let's look at some of the supporting creatures and kind of talk about why they're there in the first place, right? Again, don't pay too much attention to these numbers. This is me kind of just eyeballing it, but I don't dislike the numbers. I think having too many burning forces in your hand, because it is kind of costly magic, is not super great. But having 3 there just to be able to obliterate some nexuses is good. And then my other draws here I kept kind of low just so I could kind of balance out here and keep it as close to 50 cards as possible. Of course, if you wanted to bump these up to 4 and run a 52 card deck, maybe you want to bump this up to 2 and run a 53 card, you could. But with this being just 3 Dragon Seagworms, and me not wanting to necessarily kind of float at the end for too long, because this kind of takes up that spot, even though this is technically speaking a better card or a stronger card. But check this out. So this is where we're gonna go, right? So notice we still have our Awaken here. We have our Awaken here. We have Awaken on Moonbow. We have Awaken on Divine Mars Dragon, right? And then we have Conflict over here. So what's the plan here? Well, the idea is, so as we're building up, right, we're going to build up our field probably early on, ideally with this Fire Elemental Rubius and these Rain Needles. Notice he can't attack unless you have him at level 2, and then you can draw a card when he's destroyed. You could totally use these as like little suiciders in order to get some destruction effects off with him if you needed to. So you throw an extra 2 cores on him, throw him against something that wouldn't win, and then boom, he's going to die, and then that's going to activate this as long as you're attacking in your turn, right? Rain Needle is just there to sit on the field. Notice he costs 1. He's got 1 reduction, so at the end of the day you can get him out on the field for free, especially if you've already got one of these on the field, right? You put out something for 0, throw a core on it, and now you can summon any Rain Needles in your hand for free, plus the core to keep them alive. So then if these are build-ups, right, so we're building up our cost reduction along with any Volcanic Canyon, right? So we get these three on the field, and now we've got at least 3 reduction, and so we can pay 4 to get a 10 sword out, pay 5 to get the Supernova out, but we don't have to. So again, we're kind of resting on these very early on, right? And so then we have our build up. So we've got our 3 costs, we have our 4 costs in here, right? Over here, we've got our Divine Halberd Dragon arc. Now, this one I like because early on in the game, these harder hitting decks are susceptible to kind of like a Zerg Rush maneuver, especially from yellow, and probably from green if it's a heavily tokenized deck. And green's tokens only have 1,000 BP, so this would be super effective. And what this does, you get Divine Halberd Dragon Arc out. Neither player's life can be reduced by an attack from a spirit that has 2,000 or fewer BP. So if we come over here and then notice also when the spirit attacks, select one of your opponent's spirits with 2,000 or fewer BP and destroy it. So again, we're controlling their side of the field, especially if we're fighting against like something low BP trying to just get you early. This is going to stop that, right? And all you got to do to be able to attack with this, throw 2 on here. An extra core and boom, Rain Needle escapes that. He can't do anything, but that's fine. Ultimately, realistically speaking, these 2 are going to be sacrificed in order for you to be pulling out anything higher, right, later on. So they're just early on reduction generators. Then we come over here to Dragon Andrometeos, Medios. I don't know how you say it, but that's how I feel like you say it. So right here, we're stopping 2000s from being able to hurt us, which means they're having to put more cores on their creatures, which means either less creatures on the field, or you're facing down a field full of creatures that can't do anything to you. And notice this says, neither player's life can be reduced from attack from a spirit that has 2,000 or fewer BP. So if it's early on and you don't feel like they're going to bump up their BP, you don't even have to block. Because at that point, unless you're blocking for a purpose, they can't reduce your life. So there's no reason to risk health destruction over here, or reduction over here. So anyway, we're going back over here to Galaxy Dragon. So level 1, 2, and 3. When you summon a Star Dragon spirit, count each symbol on this spirit as 2 symbols when calculating cost reduction. So there it is. So ideally, what we're going to be doing is we'll build up over here. We'll protect ourselves from any Zerg rushes right here. And then this card, we could actually even sacrifice one of these reduction cards if we need to make sure we got a core on this. But this is going to be one of the things that's going to help us. So we can actually sacrifice any of these 2 over here for this. And then when this spirit attacks, reveal the top 3 cards off of your deck, add 1 Star Dragon Spirit card from the revealed cards to your hand, return the remaining cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. So what he is basically doing at this point is he's allowing us to then shop for our 10 Sword Saint Starblade Dragon. Right, it may be the Supernova. There's no, we don't have to specifically show anything. Oh, no, it does. It says reveal the top 3, so you do show. So they'll see it in your hand, but, you know, who cares, right? So if we got 2 of these on the field, that's 4 reduction. Even though these 2 only have up to 3 reduction, we do have some 4 reduction right here. And we can start kind of bumping off any of our cheaper reductions if we need to. Now you'll notice I have Moonbow Dragon here. It's for his flash effect. He's pretty cheap to get out. I only put 2 of them there because all it does have is flash. And we're going to come back to that in a second on this Thunder Dragon Seagworm, right? But just notice you might want to keep this just kind of floating in your hand. If you need to, you can throw him on the field. But at this point in the game, he's fine. Like, there's no reason to put him out there unless you absolutely need to. Keep him protected in your hand for the moment. So, Photon Dragon, select one of your opponent's spirits with 2,000 or fewer BP and destroy it when the spirit attacks. Again, it's playing kind of along this line, but just a cheaper version of it. So, yes, it costs 1 more core to get him out, but this is when every time he attacks, he gets to do it. This is only when he attacks at level 3, so he's going to have 2 cores on him to get this effect. Really, what we're doing is we're trying to use this guy for his level 1, 2, and 3 abilities, right? And you just have this added bonus that you can knock off some 2000 if you need to. Photon Dragon over here is going to just be aggro version of this if you're needing to clear out a 2000 BP field. Then we come over here to Divine, Mars Dragon, Ares Dragoon. Again, we have Awaken. We'll talk about that in a second. While the spirit attacks, when the battle ends once per turn, you may refresh all of your spirits with Awaken. So what this one's doing, right, we got to get him up to level 3 for this, for it to really work. But if we have the cores on our side to be able to do this, then what he's going to do is you only really need one on the field. Now he's going to let every single creature with Awaken, boom. So that's 1, that includes himself. So 1, 2, if you got him on the field, and then both of our big ones down here, right? So that's 4 attacks that I can make. Boom, 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 right? And so that's 4 attempts at health right there. Never mind that we're also able to destroy some 2000 BPs over here, right? Now we come down here, and this is kind of like the final step in here. This is kind of what brings it all together in a way. He has Confront, which, as you see here, your opponent must block if able. All of your spirits with Awaken gain Confront. And so here's the benefit of that, right? Instead of allowing somebody, because again, we're trying to control their field. We're trying to keep them destroyed and empty. So what we want to do is now all of these awakened creatures get Confront, right? So that's, again, 4 spirits over here that are revving to go. Over here we got plenty of attack, right? We want to make sure we don't summon him out too early, or at least if we get him out, we want to make sure that we either get him up to level 3, or maybe we're prepping to get Supernova and Dragon out. So we have some options there, but as soon as we're ready, get those 5 cores on there. And now what we can do is we can throw our last set of punches, right? So we can force any of their cards that are on their side of the field to now just take the hits. Right, and so ideally by this point they have no cards on their field, just higher level ones, higher than 2000 BP, which is not hard to do, because once you start getting into 3 and 4 stars, a lot, or 3 or 4 cost, a lot of them do kind of base out at 3. But again, remember, these right here, these 2 right here are there to help protect you in the early game and help keep their field clear out, help keep their cost reduction down. And we don't necessarily, with this deck, we want to help, since we don't have any core control, so we don't have any way to get extra cores on our side of the field, but we're also not getting rid of any extra cards in their hand. We're not getting rid of we're not stopping them from generating cores. So I do think that this is kind of susceptible to a deck where they're just got a ton of core control. There's nothing on here protecting you from purple, but I think this deck is aggressive enough, which is what I was looking for when I was building it, to basically, like, if you get faced off against a purple deck and they're running Curse, right, you got some turns to go ahead and knock those cursed creatures out, without having to be afraid of blocking for them. And then, of course, you've got your absolute Ice Shield here to protect you from them going all in on Curse and wiping your side of the field, right? But you want to kind of get through their field if possible. Like, if you're able to clear out their side of the field, they have nothing in their burst zone, and you're sitting on 5 attackers, go ahead and beat them, right? I mean, that seems obvious, but the goal here, again, is just going to be that synergistic destruction. Let's just control their side of the field. Let's wipe out their nexuses with Burning Force, right? And let's wipe out their cheaper creatures, again, with Photon Dragon and Divine Halberd, right? And then let's get Galaxy Dragon out, right? He is going, again, we can then start sacrificing this because he's worth 2 of these, right? So then we can use that for reduction to help get out the rest of this. We only need 2 of these on the field, period, to pay reduction costs for everything out here. There's nothing with more than 2, or more than 4 reduction. So just 2 of these bad boys right here got you covered, right? Then he only costs 2 to get out on the field, right? So that could be a 1,000 with some awaken potential. And again, remember, we kind of talk about awaken here on these, and we kind of blow past it. But again, if you're facing down a heftier creature like a Maduke, or something like, say you're playing purple and they pop out a Maduke, or you survive some core control and now you're fighting like a dark dragon or something like that. Use that awaken attack. If they're not gonna, if they don't block this guy, cool, you're doing life damage, right? Then you want to make sure you're attacking with Moonbow, right? He only costs 1 to get out at that point. You got 2 of these on the field, it costs 1 to get him out, right? Attack with that Moonbow. They're going to see 3,000 and they might try to block you, because for some reason I noticed that a lot of people don't seem to take Awaken seriously. But, dude, they don't block this 3,000, or maybe they do because they're not paying attention or they don't care about the Awaken. Dude, rip the cores off of this guy if you have to. Get this bumped up to knock out some of those big ones, because at the end of the day, your game state matters the most, right? So we could spend all this time setting up all of this, and you have, you sacrifice these to get these 2 out. Now you've controlled and wiped out all the 2,000s on their field, but now they have enough cores to pull out something big. Maybe we go ahead and sacrifice. We don't see any more 2,000s, or we wipe out a bunch of them, or maybe they're playing a harder hitting deck, so 2,000 is not a big deal. So we can go ahead and sacrifice this to make sure we get this out, right? Get 2 of these out. Make sure they're just hanging out on your field. You don't have to attack with them, just so you can start getting these bad boys out, right? And then I personally would go ahead and try to get one of these out, even though I might not attack with it, just so I have the ability to do the ascension and get my health back over here, right? So maybe a solid effect or solid way to actually pull this out would be, so maybe we need more cores at a certain point, so we let them do a bunch of damage, get us down to, say, 2 health, absolute ice shield. Then next turn we lay this out, heal back up to 4. And so what we just did was we let them nearly kill us so that we could get 3 more cores, 3 more cores to work with while still having max health, right? Also, he could be pretty handy to have just sitting there if your time's about to run out in the game and you're going for a technical win. Yeah, totally. Ascension, keep your health up, keep your blocks up, and then make sure you're destroying. So remember, the point is that we get him out on the field, and now with him out on the field, we no longer need Photon Dragon, and we don't need Divine Halberd, unless, of course, there's a lot of 2,000s out there. Or we're concerned about that, right? And then we're just generating 3,000 BP destruction. So what this is going to do, again, is with 3,000 BP, notice up here when we're looking at these are not jokey cards in terms of like being low BP 3 and 4 cost cards. They all have 3,000. Notice this one card, right? If we had him on the field and nothing else, and we're playing against this exact same deck, right? We get him on the field, we have him at 5 cores, right? In our hand, we have a charge draw and a star blessed draw, right? We have him on the field, so all we would have to do is then play these 2. That would give us 4 3,000 BP or lower damage. Lower enemies gone. So if that means that if they did not have enough cores on these cards, we could wipe out their whole reduction builder with him. We would wipe out any of their abilities to use Awaken to help kind of block or cheap this guy out, right? And we would get rid of their ability to wipe out an extra 2,000 BP or, card. So just notice that when these spirits attack, not only are we wiping out a 2,000 BP card, right? So we're getting rid of one of their tokens, or we're also still attacking them. So they still have to block with a non 2,000 or higher BP. So I think that this is kind of there. I think I would probably play with the numbers a little bit. I'd probably reduce one Rain Needle maybe for an extra Super Dragon Nova, just to have two in there to increase the chances of pulling it. But we're drawing so much from Charge Draw and Star Bless Draw. I mean, I would even maybe bump this down 1 and 1, so I could bump these two up to 4 to keep the draws going. You don't want to run out of your deck, but between these two and Volcanic Canyon, get every turn. Well, I say every turn, but in a given turn, assuming you could pay for it with the cores, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 destruction of 3,000 or fewer BP. Never mind the fact that we have this Burning Force over here where we could potentially get rid of a Nexus too. So that would be that would really, really, really damage their field. And then if we could get Super Dragon Nova Seaworm out here, we would probably want to go ahead and put the cores on him, and then from that point on, we're just going to control the field with their select any number of opponent spirits with combined 10,000 or fewer BP. They have to have some of their higher cards, whether it's a Voidlord or another 8-cost card out there. Like, notice even this 8-cost, right? And he would be susceptible to himself if we're playing the exact same deck until level 3. Until level 3. Because right here he's got 9,000. That might be the only thing you're taking out, but still, that's me attacking, wiping out your strongest, one of your strongest cards on the field, and then you still got to block with them. So we do that, and then notice over here, we attack here, attack with Moonbow. All right, everybody's got Confront, so they can't not wipe their field out, right? And then we refresh them all with Awaken. Again, do I think that this is all going to play out perfectly? No, right? Because look at the core cost. I mean, come on, 6 right here, 5 cores here, 5 cores over here. Realistically, we're looking at probably running 3, right? Running 3. And then he'd probably be at a 1. And he'd probably be at a 1 until I needed all of them to have Confront. And then I could, in my main step, throw them all on there. And that'd be one of those, like, hey, I know I can wipe out his entire field without too much of a concern. So I'm going to throw Confront on there, and I'm going to attack. You probably, because of it having to be at 5 cores, you're probably going to have to move cores off of him, so they might not get refreshed. But again, though, it might be worth your time at that point sacrificing any lower costs in here, because like once you got these out on the field, right, you can start sacrificing some of your lower cost. Maybe not this one, just to keep him there in case they do wipe this one out. But you would definitely get rid of like your Photon Dragon, your Divine Halberd, if there's no fear of 2000s. And then you'd definitely be done with your Rain Needle and Fire Element, right? And so you'd probably be moving cores over here. And the way that I could kind of see this playing out is you move all of your cores over here during your main step. Now they've all got Confront, right? So they go in there and they fight. They wipe out the enemy force opposite of them, right? During the last turn, or during whatever turn you're using with this on here, then you're going to use his Awaken effect, pull those cores back off of him onto here, right? So he's going to attack. And you could do that with all of these in a way, right? So because they all have Awaken at level 1, you can move them all over here, have Confront, right? That way you're forcing them to attack. These would only be at 1,000 BP, which wouldn't, or 5,000 at level 1, 4,000 over here. But the objective would be I'm going to use Awaken on these cards to rip cores for each of these attacks, which you could do. So you could start with Moonbow, all right? Let them announce a block. Now we know who's blocking, so we know what BP we need to win with. All right, if we need 7, let's go ahead and pull those cores off of there and maybe sacrifice our last Rain Needle. Boom, 7. We just wiped out your big card that you thought you were going to get away with. Right? Then we announce our next attack, right? Looks like a 4,000. Well, that's fine. We're going to announce the attack. They don't block. We don't have to move anything, but we could go ahead and move this here just so that we have all refresh spirits at the end of the turn. Chances are you're going to go in. He's going to run the game probably mid-game, and then we could set it up so Supernova Dragon could be there in game to help wipe out any of the bigger creatures before they get too ahead of themselves. So I'm very curious what you think about the numbers, and I'd love to hear any ideas for maybe other magics or nexuses that could be added into it. Just keep in mind we're wanting to go for as low cost as possible on all of these, and so if you can find another 3, or as I'm building other decks and I come across them, I might augment this, but I do like this general setup. Like I said, I don't know that the numbers for how many cards of which are quite right without testing it, but I do like the overall setup of it. So again, just let me know what you think. I'd be happy to hear it, make any adjustments, and if anybody wants to try the deck out, go for it. I'd love to hear like what your test was like or your results. I think this would be a very good hyper aggro deck, and with a lot of again enemy field control. So anyway, thank you for your time. Y'all stay safe and have fun and keep playing some Battle Spirits. This has been Matt from Baby Dork. Take care. Oh, nobody watched it, I'm sure.